combat deployments. Please join me in welcoming General Hokanson.
Good afternoon, Governor Kitzhaber, Governor Kulingoski, Mr. Maxwell, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most of all, our World War II veterans whose service and sacrifices we honor today. It's a distinct honor for me to be here among our nation's heroes I read so much about growing up. And on such an important day in our nation's history, the 70th anniversary of D-Day, what many consider the greatest military event ever conducted, the Allied invasion at Normandy. In respect of our World War II veterans, I will not attempt to encapsulate even a small part of what they, their families, or our nation did, not only for America, but for the world. In the time we have today, my words could never give it the justice it is due. Instead, I would like to share a few brief stories that may be very similar to your own experiences, or versions with different names and events you may have heard or read about over time. What is similar in all of these is the enduring memory of a generation who gave so much to give us the life we have today. My stories began as an elementary school student. In our small library, my favorite books were a collection of books on World War II battle and events. Each was about 3/4 to an inch thick. They included Pearl Harbor, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Britain, and the day whose anniversary we share today, D-Day. Reading those books captivated my imagination, and I thought they gave me a glimpse into what it must have been like to be there. It also gave me a deep admiration and respect for our real-life heroes who experienced those events, and the inspiration that maybe one day I could be like one of them. As I grew older and experienced war myself, I realized nothing could ever help me fully understand what it must have been like to be there. Only those who experienced it firsthand would ever know what it was like to experience the sights, sounds, and smells of wars on foreign lands. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Merchant Marines arrived on these foreign lands, on the open seas, and in the skies above them. But many found these wonderful sights blemished by destruction and tragedy, the sounds of foreign languages interrupted by the machines of war, and the unfamiliar smells mixed with the smell of smoke, fuel, and sweat. In the end, however, with their victories, the familiar sights, sounds, and smells eventually returned, and with them came hope. We will never fully understand what our World War II veterans experienced, what their senses remember, or how they felt. And in retrospect, maybe that's one of the most unselfish and profound acts of their service. They experienced it themselves until victory was complete, so no one else would have to. In the same elementary school where I read about World War II, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ray Knudsen worked. Like many others of his generation, he worked hard, raised a good family, and was a good citizen. I never saw him complain, and as the janitor of our school, I'm sure he had many reasons to at times. What I never knew about Mr. Knudsen until a year later was that as a young man, his military service included a beautiful Sunday morning in Hawaii in December of 1941, when our world changed forever. That day changed the course of his life and our nation's. There was also a man I never met that I wish I had. He also served his country in World War II, and the only link I had to his military service was a Purple Heart in an old suitcase. After some research over the years, I found his service number, date of birth, place of birth, and with assistance from his next of kin, I received a large envelope in the mail from the Department of Veterans Affairs containing over 150 pages encapsulating Lester Triplett's life of over 24 years in the Navy, to include almost 4 years of service in World War II. In those pages, I read about his service at the invasion of Sicily, the bombardment of Tarawa and Wake Island, operations at Bougainville and the Western Caroline Islands, and Leyte Gulf, bombardment support to Okinawa, northern Luzon, and Formosa operations, the assault on Iwo Jima, and one of our nation's greatest air battles of the war near the Marianas Islands. In those papers, I also found the documentation to support the Purple Heart in the suitcase. It was awarded for wounds received trying to save the last U.S. aircraft carrier lost in the war, the USS Princeton, where he and over half of the USS Birmingham's crew received Purple Hearts when they pulled alongside the stricken ship trying to save it before its magazines exploded. There were over 153,000 Oregonians like Ray Knudsen and Lester Triplett who served our nation in World War II, each with their own story and each with their own legacy. Our nation was fortunate to be their home, and we will forever owe a debt of gratitude to the 3,772 Oregonians who made the ultimate sacrifice and whose loss is felt even today by their families, their friends, and their communities. Mr. Knudsen passed away in 1993 before I went back to my hometown to thank him myself. And Mr. Triplett passed away before I could ask his permission to marry his daughter. Today, however, we have the opportunity to say to all World War II veterans, present and those no longer with us, thank you. Thank you not just for what you did for all of us, our country, and our world, but thank you for the example you set then, the example you set here today, and for every day in between. Thank you for living the lives of 3,772 Oregonians whose names are engraved on this memorial never had the chance to live, and for leaving us and this world a better place. You are and will forever be our greatest generation.